Hello, welcome back to the Bald Book Geek. I'm the host of the shit show, William James. First things first, I want to give a huge shout out to the wonderful John. I discovered his book, we connected on Twitter. This video is not sponsored, I'm just saying check out his work. If you like dark epic fantasy, you are going to love this novel. It's absolutely breathtaking. Link in the description. So today we are talking about more Lord of the Rings, but this is quite an interesting one. This is not about the Rings of Power as such. This is about a proposed, and I do find this interesting, a young Aragorn and a Gimli spin-off that was kind of proposed, but nothing ever come of it. Now, I have theories why. A, it would be more of a risk because they're appealing to the mass common denominator with any television show. And B, you can't have a strong independent men on screen. You can't have strong male characters presented in a way in current mainstream media because all men are problematic. And given what Wizards of the Coast have done with Aragorn recently, I find that completely distasteful. Stop race swapping characters. Don't do that. You can't race swap one way, it goes the other way. Very simple. Stop race swapping. And gender swapping too, to fill quotas. And that's what this probably would have descended into, a bait and switch. It probably would have been similar to Obi-Wan, or She-Hulk, or Arrow. You know, these shows where they bait and switch from, oh, here's the male character, the main character, and then it will focus on the quirky, spunky Mary Sue of a female lead who is basically a carbon copy of the male character without the actual experience or anything interesting going for their writing, which is a problem. You can't have strong male characters on screen. This is where I find it quite interesting. I think they could have done at least a decent job if they had stuck to some material. Given what Amazon have the rights to, no, and I'm going to clarify something, they do not have the rights to the Silmarillion. They do not have the rights to the Lost Tales. They have the rights to predominantly the back of the book of the Lord of the Rings. Those notes, the maps, the family trees, the basic layout of timelines that are designed for the reader. They don't actually have anything. And I will say this, and by the way, I'm sick of this comment. And I see this a lot on my videos. Well, of course they have to do this. Tolkien never wrote a novel in the Second Age. He never wrote a story-driven novel about the Second Age over and over and over again. Guys, he wrote a complex history covering 1,000, 1600, 1800 years. The story is there. The characters are there. They could tell this story across those centuries. It would be beautiful. But of course they won't do that because, you know, they're not that smart and they don't have the rights to it, which is why inventing characters. But that's not beside the point. It's just a word of note for commenters. Any comment that says that will be deleted because I'm sick of them. They could have done this. A young Aragorn running around, bow, arrow, his backstory is quite fascinating, and because it's reasonably well covered in certain pages of that back of the book, you could actually create that story. You could create his backstory, his life, so easily. Gimli too. You could create those stories from what's there, easily. I could. And I'm a layman when it comes to like writing and television production, all of this stuff. But you could write that story very easily. And I think that probably would have been a better choice than going straight into something that they just want to capitalise on the name, A, The Lord of the Rings, and B, they want to replicate Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, but they also want to replicate Game of Thrones. That's not always a good thing. They wouldn't have been able to do that with this. Aragorn's story would have probably had more in common with Robin Hood. Gimli's story would have been more of a fantasy adventure, and they could have played it safe with those in that sense. On the other side, the flip side of this, is that we live in an age, and like I said, you can't have strong male characters on screen anymore. You just can't, because, you know, you need to fill that diversity and equity quota that every studio is putting on, and who is going to be the diversity hire of the week. So it probably would have descended into Aragorn with young, ethnically diverse female character who is the complete and utter carbon copy of him in every way, except female. and probably would have replaced him in most of the show, and he would have shown up to tell how amazing she is, i.e. Batgirl. Mainstream media is not where this belongs. At the end of the day, maybe this would have worked, maybe this would have been good, and I do wonder how they would have done it. Because I think it would have been a lot easier for them, and they wouldn't have had to just create so much vapid stuff out of thin air, and so many non-Tolkien characters, and so many things that bear no resemblance to Tolkien's work, including rewriting backstories of characters and taking out the philosophical side, wow, that word is a mouthful, of Tolkien's work. By condensing the timeline down and creating this, they've taken out the philosophy and the history, and it leaves the Second Age rather barren. So I do wonder how they could have done it and what they could have done. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Would you have enjoyed this series? What do you think would have happened?